For the implant to be performed correctly, it begins with implantation at the ideal location and especially into the proper depth. But at the ideal place, most of the time, there might be slope at the alveolar bone ridge. So, in the case of assembly fixture, we have to plant it less deep like this, not to the upper end. So it's planted into the proper depth. And later on, the bottom coupling is done completely and proper procedure is done. If it's planted to the upper end, partially deep, later on, the cup with a slope gets caught in residual bone walls and it becomes incomplete coupling. If so, the problems of coupling structure appear more easier and faster, so shortens lifespan of the implant. Then, it's long procedure rather than improper procedure. So, we have no choice but to connect the bottom with the less slope, and the length of cup gets long, so the physical property of the abutment gets weak, and if it's planted deeper, the slope gets smaller and becomes nearly straight, and the length of curve gets longer. So the physical property of the abutments gets weaker and frail. In addition, as the slope gets smaller, the pressure to the gingival tissue gets so light, the gingival healing gets worse. So it makes the gingiva to get inflamed easily. An improper procedure. The reason why the cup should compress the gingival tissue not only during the healing of a gingiva, but also during the entire time of use is the histologic differences between the gingiva of natural teeth and the gingiva of implant. First of all, in the implant, gingival pocket is boundary formed because of ingrowth of epithelial layer during the gingival healing. And second, the biological width formed on titanium surface of the implant is different from the biological width formed on surface of dentin or cementum of natural teeth. To be more specific about it, when you perform an implant during the healing of the gingiva, if there is no compression to the gingiva, the epithelial layer keeps flowing downward, and the long gingival pocket is boundary formed to the upper end of fixture. However, if the gingiva is compressed, the epithelial layer stops growing, and the gingival pocket gets short, and also we can get some biological width. But the biological width formed on surface of dentin and cementum of natural teeth cannot be obtained on the implant titanium surface, not equal in quality and quantity. So the implant is supposed to be structurally more vulnerable to inflammation than the natural teeth. In a situation that long gingival pocket is formed like this, in order to reduce the possibility of peri-implantitis, we need to connect the abutment that has slope rather than before. However, it's challenging to make the abutment coupled completely because there is interference with the gingiva. So we have to make an incision and open the flap to make it sure. But is meaningless because the weak compression makes the same thing happen. Therefore, after punching out gingiva without the flap, we use the healing abutment for the good gingival healing because it can be fully coupled just rotating it. And later on, it's easily replaced by the abutment with the same size as the healing abutment. Of course, it's better if the gingiva is punched out as small as possible. It's because the tight compression to it is helpful to get a better healing of it. However, if we plant the fixture with gingival flap, after integration, eject location of cover screw is invisible because it's covered under the gingiva. So it's difficult to punch out gingiva small. So we open the gingiva with the flap again, and then it's possible to connect the abutment directly and fully, or the healing about whatever. But there is no pressure to the gingiva because the suture is done. So the gingival pocket will be extended to the upper end of the fixture. Then it makes an inappropriate procedure. On the other hand, if we plant the fixture without gingival flap in the first place, it's easy to find out the exact location of cover screw, so we can punch out the gingiva as small as possible. Therefore, it's desirable to plant the fixture without gingival flap as the first step of procedure. However, when you plant it by the flaps technique, it's difficult to plant to the proper depth because we cannot check out the depth directly. So it's a problem. The fixture is likely planted deep when you plant it without gingival flap. Anyway, if we can plant the fixture to the proper depth without gingival flap, and if we can punch out the gingival flap as small as possible without incision, and connect the healing abutment to make the gingival healing good, these two steps are done correctly. However, there remains a problem to be solved during the step of coupling the hexa abutment completely, which is that the length and diameter of curve of healing abutment and hexa abutment must be identical to each other like twins for the hexa abutment to be fully coupled. If the size of healing abutment is smaller than that of the hexa abutment, the coupling is done incompletely due to interference with gingiva. It's because the hexa coupling doesn't work quickly even if we hold them both hands and try it outside the mouth. So when you try it at the mouth, the hexa coupling is coming off easily due to the resistance of gingiva, while we're going to pinch the screw with one hand and holding the abutment unstable without hand because we cannot use both hands freely at the narrow oral cavity. So, to avoid being disturbed by the gingiva, the size of healing abutment and abutment should be identical to each other. But there are too many combinations according to the length and diameter. Therefore, the number of healing abutments needed is so large, It's unrealistic to prepare as many as we need all the time. If we use abutment which is smaller than hex abutment, it's really difficult to couple it completely. So the round abutment was invented to be used in this case. It can be easily connected fully by turning the screw because it doesn't have anti-rotational structure. Moreover, we often use it directly without using healing abutment because there are other advantages. We can save time because gingival healing and abut coupling is done at the same time. And we can save the money because we don't use the healing abutments. So the entire process becomes so easy. There is no other way more comfortable than this. So these days it's getting popular more and more. However, it's not desirable procedure. It's because the round abutment doesn't have structure for the anti-rotational power, except for the friction between the inner wall of fixture and head of screw. So the anti-rotation power of it is so weak, it will rotate very easily even though the boundary is just slightly stretched. Once the wall is slightly stretched, the friction power disappears and then the rotating abutment turns the screw due to the friction between head and screw and abutment. Even if we pinch the screw, the screw rotates again because boundary was already stretched. So it repeats and then the abutment shakes more and then the wall expands further, causing the abutment to shake significantly, which eventually leads to the problems of coupling structures. Of course, the problems of coupling structure also appear in the hex abutment. However, even if the boundary wall is slightly stretched, the hex abutment doesn't rotate thanks to the hexa to hexa coupling. And it rotates when the wall is entirely stretched. So the problems of coupling structure appear more slowly in the hex abutment than in the round abutment. For this reason, it's desirable not to use the round abutment. However, if the hex abutment is incompletely connected, the screw is loosened even though the wall is not stretched. So, the completely coupled round abutment is better than the incompletely coupled hex abutment. For this reason, the round abutment is invented, which means that there is so much possibility of incomplete connection in the hex abutment. However, although the hex abutment is challenging to connect completely, it's the proper way to use hex abutment for this reason. Despite this, what's worse, the round abutment used not only when planted properly, but also when planted deeply, whether by mistake or intention. However, since the curve becomes long and straight to escape from the bone walls, there is a possibility of fracture of the abutment in addition to screw loosening, which is improper rather than undesirable procedure. However, when you plan to fix it without gingival flap, is like to be planted deeply, unintentionally. In that case, we have no choice but to use round button because it's rather better than the incompletely connected hexabutton. Therefore, we should be very careful not to plant assembly type fixture deeply.